Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to session number 203 of Kevin Reads A Course in Miracles. Session 203 will focus on chapter 26, entitled The Transition, and today will be section 5, Roman numeral 5, entitled The Little Hindrance, on page 549 of the text. Now, Jesus is referring to the little hindrance. That's that thought of separation. He just says a little hindrance. Okay. It's that little gap I put between me and God, projected out into the world, or what I think is a world. So, paragraph 1. A little hindrance can seem large indeed to those who do not understand that miracles are all the same. Yet teaching that is what this course is for. This is its only purpose. For only that is all there is to learn. And you can learn it in many different ways. All learning is a help or a hindrance to the gate of heaven. Nothing in between is possible. There are two teachers only, who point in different ways, and you will go along the way your chosen teacher leads. There are but two directions you can take, while time remains and choice is still meaningful. For never will another road be made except the way to heaven. You but choose whether to go toward heaven or away to nowhere. There is nothing else to choose. All right, it says there's nothing else to choose. You either go toward heaven or toward nowhere. All right, there's nothing else to choose. All right. So, he says that a little hindrance, all right, that idea of separation, sin, oh my goodness. He said it can seem large indeed to those who don't understand that miracles are all the same. Goes right back to the first miracle principle. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. There's no order of difficulties in the change in perception. Right? One's not larger than the other. This idea of sin is not larger than anything else, any other misperception we have. All right. He says, but it seems large indeed to those who don't understand that there's only one problem. There's one problem and there's one solution. And that problem appears in myriad forms. But there's only one problem. And that's the belief that I could leave the mind of God. The belief that I could leave the oneness. The belief that there's something else outside of the oneness. He says it's a little hindrance. He says, and teaching that is all this course is for. All right, he's telling us that's its only purpose. For only that is all there is to learn. There's one problem, one solution, and it's not such a big problem. All right? We just bring it back to the mind and sit in that unconditional love and have the misperception corrected in whatever form it takes. You'll see through these preceding or the succeeding paragraphs that he'll mention the fact that it's kind of a process, okay? So as we keep bringing those misperceptions to be corrected, we get closer and closer to the, oh yeah, that aha moment. Alrighty. But let's not skip ahead. All right. He says that's all there is to learn, is that one thing. I have to get a spot off the lens. And he says, and you can learn it in many different ways. All right. All learning is a help or a hindrance to the gate of heaven. Nothing in between is possible. So we could teach ourselves that we're separate from God. And we do that in many ways. That's what the world is for. To teach you that you are here by yourself. All right? And there's something wrong with you. And you better get what's yours. He says, all learning is a help or a hindrance. And the process of forgiveness, bringing my perceptions to that state in the mind where there is only unconditional love and the memory of who you are, right, symbolized by Jesus and Holy Spirit. Right, just bring that into the mind and be willing to be corrected, and that's teaching yourself, right? That's teaching yourself to go toward heaven, right? There are only two teachers who point in different ways, and you will go along the way your chosen teacher leads. So my chosen teacher, symbolized by Jesus, Holy Spirit, he will show me one way, and the ego will show me a different way. There are only two directions that you could take while time remains and choice is meaningful. So while we're in form, in time, choice is meaningful. When we realize we're in the oneness, there's no need for choices. Choices are over. All right? But while time remains, there's only two directions you could take. For never will another road be made except the way to heaven. All right? It says you but choose to go either toward heaven or away to nowhere. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to choose. Paragraph 2. Nothing is ever lost but time, which in the end is meaningless. For it is but a little hindrance to eternity, quite meaningless to the real teacher of the world. Yet since you do believe in it, why should you waste it going nowhere when it can be used to reach a goal as high as learning can achieve? Think not the way to heaven's gate is difficult. Nothing you understand with certain purpose and high resolve and happy confidence, holding your brother's hand and keeping step to heaven's song, is difficult to do. But it is hard indeed to wander off alone and miserable down the road that leads to nothing, and it has no purpose. All right. So nothing is ever lost but time. And he says, look, you still believe in time, so why waste it? That's what he means by losing time. All right. He says, nothing's ever lost but time, which in the end is meaningless. All right. Time is a little hindrance to eternity. All right. So when I believed I could leave the mind of God, as Ken would say, the carpet of time rolled out. And he says that's just a little hindrance, believing that there's time. All right, past, present, or future. All right? And the world will prove to us that, yeah, sure, time is real. Look at these dinosaur bones. Look at the planets. Look at the cosmos. It's billions of years old. All right? Well, Jesus is going to tell you that it's all contained in that moment that time rolled out and it rolled back. The image I get when Jesus, in these paragraphs, is talking about time, these little noisemakers that you get for parties and like New Year's Eve and whatnot, and you blow into it, it's got a rolled up paper, and you blow into it and the thing comes out. And the minute you take your breath out of it, it rolls back. But that's the image that Jesus gives us about time. It boom, boom, it rolled out, rolled back. Zing zong, it's over, he says. But we are still living in the effects of that thought, right? We believe we're here, right? And as Dr. Wapnick would always say, keep the metaphysics in your mind. It's necessary to keep the metaphysics in the back of your mind as you work on day-to-day stuff, like forgiveness. Right? Because the more you work on forgiveness, having your misperceptions corrected, the closer you get to understanding that this world was over long ago. And it won't bother you. All right? It won't be a scary thing. All right? But I digress. So time is a little hindrance to eternity, quite meaningless to the real teacher of the world. So time is really meaningless to the Holy Spirit. But he knows that we believe in it, so he's going to help us out with that. Yet since you do believe in it, why should you waste it going nowhere? All right? In another part of the text, he says, we use time to escape from time. He says you can use it to reach a goal as high as learning can achieve. All right? So that the highest learning we can achieve is that we are a decision maker. All right? I have a decision to make. Do I choose ego or do I choose the memory of who I am? Do I choose to return to the mind of God? Return is, I don't know if it's the correct word, or wake up to realize that there I am in the mind of God. All right? He says, think not the way to heaven's gate is difficult. All right, so the way to that heaven's gate is, he says, don't think it's difficult. Right? Nothing you undertake with certainty, all right, with certain purpose. He says nothing that you choose to do with a certain purpose and a high resolve and a happy confidence, holding your brother's hand and keeping step to heaven's song is difficult to do. All right? And you will be reinforced in that happiness as you go along, as you, with high resolve, have your misperceptions, you're willing to have your misperceptions corrected. All right? You will reinforce that happy confidence. And you will be holding your brother's hand. You will be holding the other's hand. Right? Because there's only one mind. And it won't be difficult to do. In the beginning, he says in other places, it does seem difficult. All right? I was in conversation with two young ladies who were doing a podcast called Peace Teachings. Wonderful people. And it was this idea of going along and being reinforced as you bring your awarenesses, you're willing to bring your awarenesses. And the question was asked, but what about people who have been, I'm paraphrasing, what about people who've been really abused, and how do they get past that forgiveness? Or how do they practice that forgiveness? Right. Well, let's remember in the Course that Jesus tells us that the Holy Spirit's idea of judgment in the world is that no one loses. So, on a practical level, I say do what you have to do to deal with whatever happened to you in the past or whatever is happening to you now. Excuse me. Take the proper steps to help yourself, all right, until you can get to the place where you can say, okay, I'm tired of the resentment, I'm tired of the anger, I'm tired of the shame and the pain, I'm just tired of it. There must be a better way of dealing with it. And we come to the Holy Spirit. We come to the right mind. You come to the symbol of Jesus, your higher self. And you sit in that presence. And you, as he says, with high resolve, you say, I'm willing to see it correctly. I'm willing to see I'm willing to see my past correctly. Right? And you begin the healing. Right? And, the ego will always tell you, yeah, they get away with it. They get away with it. No one gets away with anything. All right? And it's not about watching them suffer now. It's only about releasing yourself from all the negativity, the guilt, the shame, the pain, the low self-esteem, all the stuff that comes with the incidents that human beings do to one another. Right? So it is a process. It doesn't happen usually, bing bang. It doesn't happen like that usually. Right? There are instances where people have instantaneous realization, all right, and they're willing to let go of the past, really. But he says here, think not the way to heaven's gate is difficult. All right? Once you start on the path, it becomes less and less difficult, so to speak. All right? And it will quickly become easier. Okay? He says, because it is hard to wander off, to go back into that ego thought system, all right? To go back into that story that I am the victim. I am the victim of this person or these people. Okay? He says it is hard indeed to wander off alone and miserable down the road that leads to nothing and that has no purpose. All right, I recall to mind the survivor of the Nazi camps, Viktor Frankl, all right, who, to summarize and paraphrase, he came to learn that they can do what they do what they want, do what they can to your body, but they cannot take absolute control of your mind. You still have the mind that can make the choice. You can make the choice to be peaceful inwardly in your mind, no matter what's going on outside. Dr. Wapnick mentioned that in a lecture, a presentation he gave on using the myth of Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, only to have it come rolling down again once it gets to the top. Right. And he said, that symbolizes our daily routines, really. And you can be happy doing that. Right? As the Zen saying goes, chop wood, carry water. Seems rather mundane. You do it every day. You have to go out and chop wood, carry water. But you can be happy because the mind is open to the oneness. The mind can be enthused with the oneness. Right? He says, but it's hard indeed to wander off into that idea that I'm separated from God. To wander off alone and miserable down a road that leads to nothing and it has no purpose. All right? God gave his teacher, paragraph 3, God gave his teacher to replace the one you made, not to conflict with it. And what he would replace has been replaced. Time lasted but an instant in your mind, with no effect upon eternity. And so is all time past, and everything exactly as it was before the way to nothingness was made. The tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake, held also the correction for that one, and all of them that came within the first. And in that tiny instant, time was gone, for that was all it ever was. And what God gave answer to is answered and is gone. All right, it's a very important paragraph for students of the course, because Jesus is making no bones about it. We made the teacher, the ego, when we believed we were separate from God. All right? So we made up this ego thought system that teaches us, reinforces the fact you're separate, you're on your own. God's going to get you. God is angry. We start projecting everything onto God. All right? But he says, God gave you a teacher to replace the one you made. All right, now remember, this is all metaphoric. All right? The memory of our existence with God comes with us. All right? That's the teacher, the Holy Spirit. Jesus is the manifestation of that teacher. All right? Jesus was just trying to tell you that you are not separated from God. And they made a big deal of it. All right. I always like that saying by some philosopher or something that Jesus came to point the way to God, and we started worshiping his finger. And another one that said, God made man in his image, and then man returned the favor. So we made God in our image. And that's basically who shows up in the Bible. That man made God, who's just like us. Some days he feels like a nut, some days he don't, you know. Next time you see me coming, you better run. So God gave his teacher to replace the one you made, not conflict with it, right? So the Holy Spirit, Jesus, they're not here to conflict with the ego. That would make the ego real, to think that I have to push against it. I have to push it back. All right? I have to fight it. They don't do that. They just offer the alternative. They just offer the truth. Come to me. All right, Jesus tells them, come to me. I will help you. All right. So, and he says, so God gave you this teacher to replace the one you made. And he says, and what he would replace is replaced. He said, make no bones about it. That teacher is there. All right? And then he says, time, that we think is such a big deal. Oh my God, it's billions of years. He said, time lasted but an instant in your mind, like that little party favor, right? With no effect upon eternity. Nothing in heaven was affected. Nothing in the oneness was affected by that tiny mad idea, what he refers to as the tiny tick of time. All right? So time lasted but an instant with no effect at all upon eternity. And so all time is past. It's over. And everything exactly as it was before the way to nothingness was made. It was a silly thought. And it affected nothing in heaven. And it's done. We're just living in the aftermath. Right. The tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, which was, I believe that was separate, in that first instant. He says, in that instant, when the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake. So everything was contained in that one mistake. I believe that was separate. Once again, reinforcing the idea there's one problem. It's because all the problems are contained in that one problem, in that one thought. All right? I thought I was separate from God. All right? It's that tiny tick of time in which the first mistake was made, and all of them within that one mistake. So within that tiny tick of time, there was also the correction for that mistake. All right? And the correction for all of them that came within the first. So everything was corrected within that instant. I'm separate from God. No, you're not. You could see how it's like that. That party favor. I'm separate from God. No, you're not. That little piece of paper goes rolling out, making its funny noise. And yet we're in that dream, believing this is all still happening. And don't be a nut. Don't deny your experience. All right? Take your experience and question it. That's all. Don't deny the experience. You know, especially in Manhattan, or anywhere in New York City, really, any of the 5 boroughs. You know, if you're not paying attention, you'll ever get run over by somebody on a scooter. Any kind of a wheel that can be motorized is it's buzzing all over the streets, sidewalks, street, doesn't matter. All right? So if you think it's not real, all right. Well, I mean, if you just say, oh, this is not real, I don't have to worry about this, you know, you're liable to get crowned, as they say. All right? So don't deny your experience, question your experience. All right? What is the truth about this? Keep asking for the truth of every little thing that's contained within that first mistake. All right? And then we work our way back. That's how we use time to escape from time. All right? Don't be a nut. All right. So in that tiny tick, where all the mistakes were in that one mistake, also the correction for that one, and all of them that came within the first. And in that tiny instant, time was gone. For that was all it ever was. Right? It was just a little tick. What God gave answer to is answered and is gone. Right? And then he comes back down to our experiential level here. To you who still believe you live in time and know not it is gone, the Holy Spirit still guides you through the infinitely small and senseless maze you still perceive in time, though it has long since gone. All right, that's paragraph 4. All right. You think you live in what is past. Each thing you look upon you saw but for an instant long ago, before its unreality gave way to truth. Not one illusion still remains unanswered in your mind. Uncertainty was brought to certainty so long ago that it is hard indeed to hold it to your heart, as if it were before you still. All right. So I'm looking at things that are already over. All right. That's why we say question it. Question what you believe is happening. Bring it, don't ask yourself, okay? That's the trap too. You don't do this by yourself. You have to visualize or experience that unconditional love that's around you, that non-judgmental existence that's in your mind, and say, hey, could you help me with this? Help me to see the truth in this. And as we practice, we get closer to the gate of heaven, where all knowledge comes shining through. Knowledge of everything, who you are, your relationship with your Creator, and your function. All right. Uncertainty was brought to certainty long ago, so long ago, that it's hard indeed to hold it to your heart, as if it were before you still. Right. Paragraph 5. The tiny instant you would keep and make eternal passed away in heaven too soon for anything to notice it had come. What disappeared too quickly to affect the simple knowledge of the Son of God can hardly still be there for you to choose to be your teacher. Only in the past, an ancient past, too short to make a world an answer to creation, did this world appear to rise. So very long ago, for such a tiny interval of time, that not one note in heaven's song was missed. Yet in each unforgiving act or thought, in every judgment, and in all belief in sin, is that one instant still called back, as if it could be made again. You keep an ancient memory before your eyes, and he who lives in memories alone is unaware of where he is. You keep an ancient memory before your eyes, the memory of the thought of separation. He says you keep that before your eyes. And he says, and anyone who lives in memories in memories alone is unaware of where he is. So by living in that memory of the thought of separation, we don't know where we are. All right? We don't know where we are. I remember having a very vivid dream about 20 years ago. And I was on a sidewalk and I didn't know where I was. So I asked someone, I remember saying to them, I said, excuse me, I seem to have become disoriented. All right, can you tell me where I am? That was about what although I do remember having tickets to the Yankee game, 2 tickets to Yankee Stadium for some reason. But I remember that feeling of disorientation and not knowing where I was. Right? And that's what this sentence reminds me of, all right? So this is in each unforgiving moment, right? In each unforgiving act or thought, in every judgment and in all belief in sin, is that one instant still called back. We relive that instant as if it could be made again in time. All right? I mean, it's the concept of time can blow your mind once you grasp it. I think he's virtually, basically telling us everything is happening at once. And we're just keeping this memory in front of us. Right? Until we get to the point where we do realize, oh, we have a choice. I can make a choice. I can choose to return home. Right? And we do it in process. Until we really get a grasp on what's happening here. And it's not frightening. As a matter of fact, I recently, speaking with my friend Patty, I compared it to a little child being lost in a shopping mall. Or just a little child being lost in a crowd. And in that time, it's terrifying. It's just so much terror, so many thoughts going through the little child's mind. All right? And all of a sudden, through the crowd, comes his mother or his father. And there's that sense of release and relief, right? And everything can just calm down. But sometimes, for me, if I approach that truth, I get this overwhelming burst of emotion, and that's what I compare it to, is that little child. Finally, the fear is gone. Finally, my mom and dad are here. You know, I'm safe. All right. I don't have to worry about the world. All right. So, let's look at the correction for these things. Paragraph 6. It says, forgiveness is the great release from time. It is the key to learning that the past is over. Madness speaks no more. There is no other teacher and no other way. For what has been undone no longer is. And who can stand upon a distant shore and dream himself across an ocean? to a place and time that have long since gone by. How real a hindrance can this dream be to where he really is? For this is fact and does not change whatever dreams he has. Yet can he still imagine he is elsewhere and in another time? In the extreme, he can delude himself that this is true and pass from mere imagining into belief and into madness, quite convinced that where he would prefer to be, he is. All right. So and this is what we have done, we have convinced ourselves that where we would prefer to be, which was individual, separate from the oneness, right, where we have preferred to be, we are. We convince ourselves. All right. So the fact is that you are at home in the mind of God. And he says, this is a fact, and it doesn't change no matter what dreams you have. All right? As Shakespeare would say. All right? To sleep, perchance to dream. All right? And to paraphrase, says, who knows what dreams may come? But Jesus says here, he says it can't even be a real hindrance to what the truth is. He says, for this is a fact. This is a fact that you are in the mind of God. You are in that ocean of innocence. Right? He says, and that doesn't change. Whatever dreams he has, no matter what you're dreaming of. You are at home in God, dreaming of this exile. He says, yet in the extreme, we can delude ourselves that this is true. I'm outside the mind of God. All right. And in the extreme, it can pass from a mere imagining into a belief and into madness. Quite convinced that where he would prefer to be, he is. And so here we are, in the madness. All right? Quite convinced that we are here, where we would prefer to be, he says. You want to be here. You want to be separate from God. Until you don't. And then you make your return. 7. Is this a hindrance to the place whereon he stands? Is any echo from the past that he may hear a fact in what is there to hear where he is now? And how much can his own illusions about time and place effect the change in where he really is? All right? These are all, rhetorical questions, really. He says, no matter what you believe, is this a hindrance to the place whereon you stand? Is any echo from the past that you might hear, is that a fact in what is there to hear where he is now? All right. He says, and how much can your own illusions about time and place affect the change in heaven? He's telling you can't affect the change in heaven. Paragraph 8. He says, the unforgiven is a voice that calls from out a past, forevermore gone by. And everything that points to it is as real. Everything that points to it is real is but a wish that what is gone could be made real again and seen as here and now, in place of what is really now and here. Is this a hindrance to the truth? The past is gone and cannot be returned to you. And do you want that fearful instant kept when heaven seemed to disappear and God was feared and made a symbol of your hate? Is that what you really want? That fearful instant, that moment when love was replaced by fear? Is that what you really want? And God was made a symbol of your hate? We made the idea of God. I mean, in the Bible, that's a symbol of it's just like us. Right? He has moods, He's not, he'll kill you. So he says, do you want that fearful instant? Do you want it kept? And he says, and everything that points to the ego being real is just a wish. It's just a wish to exist as an individual. All right? At somebody else's expense, of course. All right? It's just a wish that what is gone could be made real again. He says, it's done. What do you want to recall it? Try to make it real again. Right? What do you want to see it as here and now? In place of what is really now and here. Right? He says, why do you want that? In place of what is really now and here, which is your communication with your Creator, which is your existence in the oneness. All right. Is this a hindrance to the truth? The past is gone and cannot be returned to you? Do you want that fearful instant kept? When heaven seemed to disappear and God was feared and made a symbol of your hate. Right? That's the ego thought system. Paragraph 9. Forget the time of terror that has been so long ago corrected and undone. Right? Can sin withstand the will of God? Can it be up to you to see the past and put it in the present? You cannot go back. And everything that points the way in the direction of the past, but sets you on a mission whose accomplishment can only be unreal. Such is the justice your all-loving Father has ensured must come to you. And from your own unfairness to yourself has he protected you. You cannot lose your way because there is no way but his. And nowhere can you go except to him. You can take some comfort in that. All right? Sooner or later you will remember. You will just wake up and remember that you are in the oneness. Okay? But we have to choose it. Somewhere along the line, somewhere along the carpet of time, you will choose. I assume most of you who are listening to these lessons have made a choice on some level. That you want to reunite with the truth of who you are. And the Course is only one way. It's just one way of doing this. Right? As the Eastern sages would say, there are many paths up the mountain, But once you get to the top, the view is the same. Okay? So, he says, can it be up to you to choose? Or can it be up to you to see the past and put it in the present? All right? He says, you cannot go back. It's done, no matter what you think. And everything that points the way in the direction of the past sets you on a mission whose accomplishment can only be unreal, can't be accomplished. All right? You can't separate from God. As the silly maintenance man once said, can't be done. Can't be done. Can you fix that? No, it can't be done. You cannot go back. Right? And he says, and if you think you can, it's a mission that's unreal. Right? He says, your loving Father has saved you from that. Right? By replacing the teacher that you made, right? By replacing the teacher of separation with the teachers that remind us who we are. Right? So such is the justice your all-loving Father has ensured must come to you. The justice is that you will remember that you are innocent. And from your own unfairness to yourself has he protected you. He says, you cannot lose your way because there is no way but his. And nowhere can you go except to him. Another place he says, a journey away from yourself is impossible. You will, like that party favor, come back. Zing zong. All right. So forget the time of terror has been so long ago corrected. Paragraph 10 is, would God allow his son to lose his way along a road long since a memory of time gone by? This course will teach you only what is now. A dreadful instant in a distant past, now perfectly corrected, is of no concern, no value. Let the dead and gone be peacefully forgotten. Resurrection has come to take its place, and now you are part of resurrection, not of death. No past illusions have the power to keep you in a place of death, a vault God's Son entered in an instant to be instantly restored unto his Father's perfect love. And how can he be kept in chains long since removed and gone forever in his mind? Right? In this instant, this holy instant. All right. Well, we don't have to analyze the past. This course will teach you only what is now. Right now, you are in the presence of your Creator. Okay. A dreadful instant in a distant past is of no concern, no value. This is just let the dead and gone be peacefully forgotten. Remember only the present. He says, now you're part of the resurrection. Right? Go into the right mind. You go to your right mind. You're part of the resurrection. All right. And your illusions have no power to keep you in this ego thought system, this place of death. All right. And how can he be kept and changed, long since removed and gone forever from his mind? Paragraph 11. The Son whom God created is as free as God created him. He was reborn the instant that he chose to die instead of live. And will you not forgive him now, because he made an error in the past that God remembers not and is not there? Now you are shifting back and forth between the past and the present. Sometimes the past seems real, as if it were the present. Voices from the past are heard and then doubted. You are like the one who still hallucinates, but lacks conviction in what he perceives. This is the borderland between the worlds, the bridge between the past and the present. Here the shadow of the past remains, but still is present a light, but still a present light is dimly recognized. Once it is seen, the light can never be forgotten. It must draw you from the past into the present, where you really are. All right. So once again, he's reiterating the fact that the moment I thought I was separated, I was reunited. All right. He was reborn the instant he chose to die instead of live. So by choosing to believe in separation, that's choosing death. So I chose to die, but I was released from that the moment I thought of it. All right. He says, so that happened. You were already forgiven, so to speak. All right. The mistake was corrected. So he said, so won't you forgive him now? Forgive yourself. Forgive every other that's in your mind, every other that comes in contact with you. He said, would you not forgive them because they made an error in the past? All right. They made an error in the past. They believed they were separated too. And God doesn't remember that. God doesn't think about it. It's not there. It didn't happen. And then he recognizes our situation. He goes, now you shift back and forth between the past and the present. Right? That's our working with the Course and the forgiveness and whatever spiritual path you're on. All right? Some days you hit the target, some days you don't. All right? He says, so it seems like you're shifting back and forth. Sometimes the past seems real, as if it were present. Well, yes, it does. Voices from the past are heard and then are doubted. When I go to my right mind, I take those voices from the past, however they manifested, and I bring them to Jesus. Help me to see them correctly. So you are like to one who still hallucinates, but lacks conviction in what he sees. All right? I'm still hallucinating, but I'm starting to say, wait, is that real? All right. Like in the movie, The Beautiful Mind. All right. The main character, he has gone through terrible mental illness, but it's been corrected. And he goes on to have a wonderful career as a mathematician, whose name escapes me right now because I'm old. And He receives a Nobel Prize. This is happening in real life. It's the story of a real person. And he receives the Nobel Prize, but the person comes to tell him that he's going to get the prize. And he's coming out of his classroom and there's students around him. And this person comes up to him and asks, "Could I speak to you for a second?" And jokingly, he turns to one of his students and he says, "Do you see someone standing there?" And the person goes, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, okay." So he knows it's not an hallucination. All right. So Jesus, and at the end, he sees the hallucinations that plagued him throughout most of his life. He sees them as he's leaving the ceremony for the Nobel Prize, but he just doesn't engage. Right? And Jesus says, that's the point you're at. Right? You're doubting your hallucinations. I'm doubting what I think is happening in the world. And that's what we do. We doubt it. We come and ask Jesus, what is real? What is real? Right? And he says, so in that process, this is the borderland between the worlds, the bridge between the past and the present. Here the shadow of the past remains, but still a present light is dimly recognized. We're working with these shadows. We're questioning them. We're bringing them to the mind and asking, help me to see them correctly. What is the truth here? All right? That light is dimly recognized at this point. He says, but once the light is seen, it can never be forgotten. All right? We get an inkling of the truth and we want more. All right? Because we know instinctively this is where we belong. With the light, that is. Once it is seen, this light cannot be forgotten, can never be forgotten. It must draw you from the past into the present where you really are. And it does. It draws. The more we use the mind, right, the more we question what we think is reality, the light is drawing us to what reality really is, into the present moment. Paragraph 12. The shadow voices do not change the laws of time, nor eternity. They come from what is past and gone, and hinder not the true existence of here and now. The real world is the second part of the hallucination that time and death are real and have existence that can be perceived. This terrible illusion was denied, but the time it took for God to give his answer to the illusion for all time and every circumstance. And then it was no more to be experienced as there. So he says that real world existence where we all of a sudden have relinquished everything about the ego thought system. And we are, as he says in another place, on the lawns of heaven, outside the gates, right? In the real world where everything we experience in our senses reflects the oneness to us. Right? He says that condition is still a part of the ego world. It's a part of the hallucination. Let's put it that way. We've given up the ego, but we still perceive ourselves and things around us in form. He says that's the second part of the hallucination, that time and death are real, and they have existence that can be perceived. All right? He says this terrible illusion was denied, but the time it took for God to give an answer to the illusion for all time. All right? And that's why he says that God gives the answer and lifts us up into himself. But that's the last part of the hallucination. It's the real world, right, where everything reflects the oneness, and then all of a sudden we are in the oneness. Then it is no more, and no more to be experienced. All right. And here's a very powerful paragraph. Each day, 13, each day, and every minute in each day, and every instant that each minute holds, you but relive the single instant when the time of terror took the place of love. And so you die each day to live again, until you cross the gap between the past and the present, which is not a gap at all. Such is each life, a seeming interval from birth to death and on to life again, a repetition of an instant gone by long ago that cannot be relived. All of time is but the mad belief that what is over is still here and now. Because everything you experience in the world of form, time and space, it's the mad belief that what is over is still here. It's still now. Right? And he says, in every instant of the day, every minute in each day, and every instant that each minute holds, he says, you are reliving that single instant when the time of terror took the place of love. So it would behoove us to become vigilant, right, for the ego thoughts and have them corrected. Right? And he seems to tell us that if we keep choosing that thought of separation, that we go on for lifetimes. Right? And so you die each day to live again, until you cross the gap between the past and the present, which is not a gap at all, he says. He says, such is each life, all right? Everybody's life is like that. All right? It's a seeming interval from birth to death and on to life again. All right? We're going to keep experiencing form until we can escape from form and time. All right. And all of time is but the mad belief that what is over is still here and now. Paragraph 14. All right. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. You stand no longer on the ground that lies between the worlds. You have gone on and reached the world that lies at heaven's gate. There is no hindrance to the will of God, nor any need that you repeat a journey that was over long ago. Look gently on your brother and behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love. All right. So through the process of forgiveness, all right, we behold a world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love. So forgive the past, let it go. He goes, because it is gone. He says, and actually, he says, you no longer stand on the ground that lies between the worlds. Actually, you are at home in heaven. He says, you have gone on and reach the world that lies at heaven's gate. There is no hindrance to the will of God, nor any that you repeat again, nor any need that you repeat again a journey that was over long ago. Come on, you don't have to do that anymore. It says, look gently on your brother, and behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love. So what he's telling us is that the process of forgiveness, that being willing to say, oh yeah, look, I was projecting that guilt from the thought of separation. My ego said, the way to get rid of it is project it. But he says, no, look gently on your brother. That's the process of forgiveness. And through that process, we eventually behold a world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love. And then we are on the lawns of heaven. And that lasts only an instant. And we return to the mind. Or we wake up to remember we never left. And so, that becomes the little hindrance. All right? That little hindrance. All right? All right, the belief in separation that rolls out the carpet of time. All right, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the opportunity. And we will meet again in session 204. Bye now.